What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Best F in Fantasy Show. Little preseason debate preview edition. I'm your host, Steve Albertini, joining you live from the basement. It's week 2 of the preseason. We're about to kick off in a couple weeks. Things are getting real exciting. We got a bunch of guys we want to talk about here, and we're going to get right into it. But before we do, I want to introduce my senior analysts, Carmen Del Mastro and Jerry Procopio. Our producer, Nick Specca, is in the building as well, working the Twitter. Follow us at Best F and Show. Tweet us with any questions or any concerns you have throughout the season. We'll be happy to help you out, as always. Follow our website. Very proud of all the work we put in to put together a great new website in the last couple months, bestfinfantasyshow.com. A lot of great content on there. A lot of great profiles on a lot of guys going into the season. Hopefully, they'll be of some assistance for your drafts. Check out our draft kit as well. We have composite rankings. We have individual rankings. We got PPR rankings. We got everything there for you. So please check it out. Hopefully, we can be of some assistance to you throughout the year. But like I said, it's the preseason. It's been a crazy preseason. A lot of injuries. We're not going to get too much into that today. But it's been a wild couple weeks here since training camp started at the end of July. A couple weeks away from kickoff. I want to jump right into it. This is going to be a debate setting. We're going to put together a couple different comparable players, and our analysts are going to tell you who they think is poised for the best 2013 season. We're going to jump right off with a couple guys two running backs who are kind of on that fringe of being a good, productive, maybe like a low-end RB2, maybe, depending on your scoring setting, maybe they're on that fringe of being productive, consistently, and, hopefully this is the year where they can break out. And the two guys I want to talk about is both from the AFC East, Lamar Miller, the running back from the Miami Dolphins, and Stephen Ridley of the New England Patriots. Real quick, just to get it started off, Jared, who do you like, Lamar Miller or Ridley in 2013?
This year, I would lean more towards getting Ridley because, he's already proven he can hold up a full season. He does have a little bit of fumbling problem, but with some of the injuries at tight end, Ridley's going to be expected to carry the load a little more.
Even though he's in a little bit more of a crowded backfield, Carm, you want to jump in here?
I do want to jump in.
Yeah.
I didn't think you were going to say Ridley. I thought you were going to go with Lamar Miller just because of what Steve just said with the crowded backfield in New England. They do have now somewhat of a power game in LeGarrette Blount, and they do have that other option in Shane Vereen, who is a playmaker, who they will be lining up all over the field and can easily take those first-team snaps away from Ridley because Ridley does have fumbling issues. So you know how Belichick likes to get with his players, one false move, one fumble, and we could be looking at Shane Vereen as the starting running back in New England. I am a bigger fan of Lamar Miller because there is no second option. He's the guy they're going to go with in Miami. Granted, the first play of the preseason, there was a bad exchange. He fumbled the football. No harm done. He did, pick his game up for the rest of the reps that he got in that game. So he's a 3-down back. He can produce. He will put up solid RB2 numbers this season. So I'm going to side with Lamar Miller here.
No worry whatsoever about Daniel Thomas?
Not a big factor in Daniel Thomas. Not a big fan of Daniel Thomas, especially last year. He had a chance to show what he had last year. Last year I was actually a big fan of Lamar Miller. I would actually drop his name on the show quite a bit. Watch out for Lamar Miller. Watch out for him. So this year he's the guy.
Jay, you're not threatened at all by the presence of Vereen or Blount, or at least not enough to cut into Ridley's production?
Not really, because I'm looking at it as a team, too. Like, the Patriots are a very high-scoring offense. Sure. There's enough points to go around. So even if Blount comes in, steals a few goal line carries, Ridley comes in, split out wide, gets a few receptions here and there, I think Ridley's still going to get 20 touches a game either way.
Now, do you think that with the lack of, A, veteran presence on the outside in New England, and B, just the mess that the tight end situation is, do you think that's going to factor into the running backs just becoming in total just a bigger part of the offense?
They're going to have to be factored in even more. So the running game is going to be relied on heavily this year.
Now, do you agree with that?
Especially,
they're still going to put the ball in Brady's hands?
Oh, I still think the running game is going to be relied heavily on. But then again, it all could change. You never know. Brady could take over the game whenever he wants. Vereen, he's a guy, I wrote about him. He's going to be like their Kevin Falk. That's the best comparison I can think of. He's going to be all over the field, and he will steal touches away from Stephen Ridley eventually this season.
Now, moving from running back to wide receiver, two guys who had incredibly productive 2012s, James Jones of the Green Bay Packers and Eric Decker of the Denver Broncos, both in pretty much identical situations. Both could be looked at as the third wide receiver in their respective powerhouse offense. You know, it's real crowded in Denver, a lot of mouths to feed as well as Green Bay. Jones coming off a 14-touchdown campaign. It's undeniable. He had a great year. Carm, what do you see for Jones in 13?
I love James Jones. Here's a guy, like you said, 14 touchdowns, led the NFL in touchdowns last year. He does have, every now and then he does have the drops. He will drop, occasional ball here and there, but you look at that offense, no Jordy Nelson to start the season. Randall Cobb's dealing with the bicep injury. James Jones right now, he's the number one receiver right now in Green Bay. So
yeah, if week one started today, I guess
he's the number one right now. And you also have to factor in contract year for the guy. Coming off a huge season last year, another way to follow it up, have another huge season this year, get paid next year. You always got to factor that in. So I'm a huge James Jones fan this year.
Yeah, I agree with all that. He's a guy where he's going between rounds 6 and 7. People are drafting Cobb and Jordy Nelson well ahead of him, and he's a guy where you could probably get as your third receiver, and even as a third receiver, that's a steal.
So you like him better than Decker?
Yeah, I do.
Well, now, is it just the presence of Wes Walker that we're down on Decker?
Yeah, the presence of Wes Walker is going to affect Decker and Thomas's value just a little bit, not too much, because Peyton's going to still throw 4,500 yards and over 30 touchdowns. Everybody's going to get an equal share. Everybody's going to be consistent, but James Jones has a definitely higher ceiling this year than Decker.
Do you place the slide of Decker mostly on Wes Welker?
Absolutely. You can't deny Wes Welker in the offense. He's a playmaker. He's going to catch around still 75, 85 balls this season, even with the big three they have in Denver. Mm-hmm. So it's going to cut into Decker's share.
I mean, Eric Decker had a monster year last year. 85 catches, over 1,000 yards, 13 touchdowns. Really impressive. But yeah, I agree. I mean, Wes Welker is just...
He's not a bad wide receiver 3 to have anyway.
No, absolutely not. I mean, we're not in any way saying don't draft Eric Decker.
No.
I mean, Eric Decker holds tremendous value depending on where you get him.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think we're all in agreement that James Jones is...
Payne already has chemistry with Decker already, so I mean, all three of those guys are going to be consistent.
Yeah. Moving along, we want to talk about some young guys here, guys that are anxiously waiting to make their mark in the NFL. Before we get into all the rookies, we got a couple rookies we want to talk about. Got some second-year wide receivers that, and I know everybody talks about the third year being the breakout year for the wide receiver. We're not waiting for the third year. The second year, we got a couple breakout candidates. Ruben Randall with the New York Giants, Alshon Jeffrey with the Chicago Bears, and Michael Floyd with the Arizona Cardinals. Out of those three, who do we see stepping up and becoming an impact fantasy player in 2013?
I'm going to go with Michael Floyd. I love, the Bruce Arians being the coach of the Arizona Cardinals. Granted, they do have Larry Fitzgerald on the other side, and that is why I love Michael Floyd so much. It's going to take a lot of attention away from Michael Floyd. Michael Floyd, big body receiver, can also stretch the field. It's going to take a lot more than a little tiny DB to, jam Michael Floyd off the line. He has a big body, kind of the same frame T.O. has, almost not the same skill set, but he's a playmaker. Absolutely, Michael Floyd.
Jerry, I have a feeling you're going to go in a different direction.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I'm going to say Ruben Randall because, the entire offseason, Hakeem Nicks is still battle injuries, and Victor Cruz, even though he caught that big touchdown in preseason, he still has some rust because he sat out most of the offseason with contract disputes. And during that time, Ruben Randall's been shining in practice, and he's established himself as the clear-cut third wide receiver on that team. It's only one injury away from Hakeem Nicks missing time, and Randall's going to be one stepping in. And I think he's going to make a lot of plays this year.
I agree with you in the sense that if Hakeem Nicks misses time, he can step in and produce. I think we're all in agreement that he can do that.
Yeah.
But it's a big if. I mean, it's not necessarily a big if with Nicks' history, but Nicks is also in a contract year, so you think that he's going to show up this year and perform. What about Jeffrey? And no love for Alshon Jeffrey, or he's just not on this level yet?
I think Jeffrey's going to have he's going to have a leap from last year, because like last year he did have some injury problems, but this year, with the new coach and everything, looks to spread the ball around. Last year Mike Tice relied a lot on Brandon Marshall a lot. This year he's going to spread the ball around, so Jeffrey should have a productive season.
I like Jeffrey too. I just think Michael Floyd's the guy out of those three.
Mm-hmm.
You look at the Cardinals' offense; they're going to throw the ball. Not much in the run game. I know they signed Rashard Mendenhall. Jerry loves him, but I'm not a huge fan of Rashard Mendenhall, especially with his injury past and running behind it. Hit or miss Arizona Cardinals offensive line. Playing against three teams in that division that probably have three best run defenses in the league. They're going to have to throw the ball in at least 6 of those games.
Mm-hmm.
You see, so
and that's their plan. Their plan is definitely
they're
going to throw the
it.
ball. I mean, they brought in Bruce Arians for a reason. You saw when he was in Indianapolis last year, they either didn't run the ball or couldn't effectively run the ball. He's going to face a lot of those same problems in Arizona. I don't care who the retooled offensive line is. And they bring in Carson Palmer. I know Carson Palmer is not 2005, 2006 Carson Palmer, but he still threw for over 4,000 yards last year, which is an enormous step up from what the Cardinals have been dealing with since Kurt Warner retired. One last thing on Randall. Is his production solely tied to Hakeem Nicks's availability? I mean, because then if that's the case...
The offensive coordinator pretty much made it clear that Randall's going to have a role in this offense. Like, last year, their third receiver, they were rotating Dominique Hickson, Ramses Barden once in a while, and those guys actually put up numbers.
Mm-hmm.
So Randall's going to have a role either way. So I could definitely see him catching about 70 balls, maybe about 900 yards, maybe 8 touchdowns. And, I mean, if Nix goes down, which has been the pattern over the years, it's only a bonus.
So he's productive, and if Nix gets hurt, watch out.
Yeah,
he could really step up.
Definitely.
And perform. I mean, let's not forget Eli Manning is, a season away from throwing for over 5,000 yards. So he's going to...
Yeah, exactly.
They're going to throw the ball.
Yeah, plus, like, with the running game and all, like, David Wilson, there's still questions with him. Andre Brown hasn't been able to stay healthy. So, if they don't have a solidified running game, they're going to have to throw the ball even more. So
Absolutely. A lot of uncertainty at the running back position. Little running back by committee in the Meadowlands this year. Moving on to some rookies. Not going to ask for your offensive rookie of the year predictions just yet, but we have a couple position battles here that I want to get your take on. A couple really good rookie running backs in this year's draft, some of which we're expecting to make an immediate impact for their respective teams. In particular, who do you expect to rise out from that crop and be the best rookie running back, fantasy-wise, in 2013?
For me, it's hard between Le'Veon Bell and Giovanni Bernard, but if I had to pick one, right now I would lean a little bit more towards Bell right now, but later in the season I would go with Bernard, because you see with Bernard it's going to be the same thing we saw last year with Doug Martin and LeGarrette Blount. You see a rookie running back with a ton of skill who can be a third down back, who can catch the ball out of the backfield, push a veteran guy like Ben Jarvis, Green Ellis out of the way. So this year, Bernard has the skill set to do the exact same thing that Doug Martin did last year. With Bell, he can be a 3-down back from day one. So as of right now, I would say Bell. There's a reason why the Steelers drafted him, and today I'm going to go with Bell.
Bell, based on his opportunities.
Yes, absolutely.
He doesn't have to share. He's listed as a co-starter with Isaac Redmond, but we all know that Isaac Redmond is not going to be the starter.
A threat. Yeah.
Jared, I have a feeling you're going to lean a little bit towards more towards Gio here.
Yeah, I'm going to lean towards Bernard because they didn't waste a high pick on him for nothing. He's going to come in, he's going to contribute right away, and I think it's going to be 50-50 between Bernard and Green Ellis. The first couple games, but Bernard's ceiling is way higher than Ellis's. Everybody knows Ellis's ceiling, so Bernard's going to come in, he can catch the ball out of the backfield, he can do it all, and I have high hopes for the Bengals offense this year, and he's going to be a big contributor.
So, and Carm, you said you were big on Bernard. I think we're all big on Bernard. Is it really just a matter of time until he completely supplants Ben Jarvis, Green Ellis?
They haven't had that type of runner in their backfield in a while. So, I mean, a guy with that kind of talent, you can't not get him on the field. He adds another element to go along with A.J. Green, Mohamed Sanu, Eifert, Jermaine Gresham. He has that speed element in the backfield, and now you can't.
Well, I mean, there's no doubt that Ben Jarvis, Green Ellis is a productive player, but he's not a game breaker. He's not somebody that teams are going to game plan around. But Bernard could definitely be that guy for them.
He's definitely a guy you have to compensate for coming out of the backfield, catching the ball. Ben Jarvis Green Ellis, he's kind of a wet paper towel. You know what you're going to get from him.
Sure.
Yeah.
Now, a guy that's like, to me, he's very intriguing is Monty Ball. And it's kind of hard right now because the backfield's a little crowded in Denver. But as the season progresses, do you see Ball, taking over, or are we thinking like committee all year, taper your expectations on Ball? Where do you stand on Ball?
Based on recent reports, they're saying that they're just going to go with a full-blown timeshare. So he's a guy that's like high risk, high reward, and he might have some big games here and there, but it doesn't look like Ronnie Hillman's going to go away.
Yeah, I have to agree with you on that. There's too many mouths to feed in the backfield right now.
Yeah.
So
Plus Peyton likes to throw the ball a lot too. So
he does like to throw the ball.
Don't forget about No Sean Moreno.
Yeah, No Sean might come in once in a while.
Yeah, Ball's just there's such a high-powered offense this year, and as much as Manning does like to throw, they had the 6th most rushing attempts in goal-to-go situations, and you know that they're going to get down there.
Exactly.
So he's just a guy to keep an eye on. If we see that he eventually takes over as the number one guy, he's definitely a guy that should be on everyone's radar. Obviously,
he's worth a flex play.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
That's really it right now until we have more clarification.
Now, what about at the wide receiver position for the class of 2013? Not any any big. Well, we have Tavon Austin. Tavon Austin, I think we all agree, is the clear cut. He's going to be the most productive out of the gates, or at least that's what we all anticipate. But after him, a lot of guys kind of jumbled together here. Who do you see kind of stepping out of that crop and being productive in 2013?
I was going to say Aaron Dobson, but the recent reports have showing like Kembrell Tompkins, I think that's how you say his name. Brady looks like he's been going to him a lot. He's been running with the first team, so it could be one of those guys. But still, you know how the Patriots are. They like to have a different favorite receiver every week. So we'll see. I mean, there's a lot of talented rookie wide receivers this year. DeAndre Hopkins has looked awesome in preseason and in training camp. But it's going to be a tough call. I especially like Robert Woods. Kevin Cobb loves him. He's going to be playing the slot. Remember how David Nelson was when he played the slot before he got hurt? Very productive. They don't really have that many other big threats at receiver in Buffalo, and I think they're a team that's going to be throwing the ball a lot, so he might produce by default.
Why do you think they're going to be throwing a lot?
Because they're a team that I think is going to be playing from behind.
Top-tier running back in C.J. Spiller, who they're just going to feed the ball to.
Well,
so you might want to factor that in.
They do.
With a rookie quarterback and 2 rookie wide receivers.
Kevin Cobb's going to start the year.
Even more reason to run the ball.
Colin, what about you for rookie wide receivers?
Two guys
stand out?
2 guys that I actually do like that Jerry didn't mention. I do like Marcus Wheaton with the Steelers. Plaxico Burress is out for the season. I don't know if you really want Jericho Cottrey to be your third wideout. I mean,
Maybe
yeah, he's a solid veteran to have there, but you have Antonio Brown, Emmanuel Sanders, 2 speed receivers, and you add a bigger guy in Marcus Wheaton who can also stretch the field, who can be a goal line threat down the red zone. So Marcus Wheaton's a guy to definitely keep on your radar as we move closer to kickoff and as the season progresses on the waiver wire. And then we have another guy in San Diego, Keenan Allen. We see a number of injuries out there in San Diego right now. Malcolm Floyd still unsure what's going on with his injury.
Yeah.
They have Vincent Brown, Keenan Allen's another guy. That tandem, they could do some damage the way Philip Rivers likes to just throw ducks in the air whenever he feels like.
I know Vincent Brown's not a rookie, but I mean this is essentially like a
third year.
Well, he's like, how much did he play in years 1 and 2?
Not much.
He broke his ankle last year.
Last year he didn't play at all.
He didn't play at all.
I mean, Vincent Brown is...
He showed flashes at the end of 2010.
Yeah.
Definitely breaking
2011.
All reports about Keenan Allen are he has a long ways to go.
Yeah.
I think Vincent Brown is definitely on the up and up. All right, moving from the new guys to the established veteran guys, we have a couple guys at a couple different positions that are being drafted close to each other. Want to get your opinion on them. I have a feeling we're going to have some good debate here. At wide receiver, Calvin Johnson's the man. Megatron's going in the first round in every draft. But after him, you have a lot of very good elite receivers. You're drawing straws, basically, saying who's the next best. But we're going to ask the question anyway. Who is the number 2 receiver after Calvin Johnson? Jared, I have a feeling that...
I'm going to say Dez Bryant, because the second half of last year, 50 catches, over 800 yards, 10 touchdowns. If he continued that over a whole year, he might have a better year than Calvin Johnson. Who knows? But that's my number 2.
But you want a guy that's going to be... that has the risk of beating his mom with a baseball bat or a hat at any chance, and then you lose him for the rest of the season?
No, he'll be fine.
All right.
He's been on his best behavior.
You have to watch. That's the only thing that scares me about that is you don't know who's going to show up, what he's going to do from day to day. You don't know what's going on with the guy. So, I mean, there's safer number 2 options out there like Brandon Marshall. I do like Brandon Marshall. He's a little bit of a nutcase too, but he actually showed last year that he can be, somewhat normal. And with his receptions and in a PPR league, the guy's an absolute monster. And especially with the uncertainty with Alshon Jeffrey, if he's going to be able to play a full season, if the Bears even have a number 2 option in the passing game. We just saw last year Cutler would just target Marshall regardless. He would just throw it in his direction, and Marshall would come down with it. Mm-hmm. Then you have Julio Jones in Atlanta, A.J. Green in Cincinnati. Julio Jones is another guy with injuries you got to watch. Doesn't have the greatest hamstrings, but the guy can light it up. He's got Roddy White across from him, of course, but the guy's an absolute freak, and he can easily be Calvin Johnson-esque if he can stay healthy. A.J. Green quietly scores a touchdown every week.
Yeah, he does.
Four receptions, he'll give you 90 yards, touchdown every week.
I think A.J. Green and Julio Jones, in my opinion, are really the only other people you could put in this conversation. Mm-hmm. With all due respect to Andre Johnson and Larry Fitzgerald and whoever, I think it's those 4. I think with Dez and Marshall, it's really just a matter of consistency versus potential. I mean, we all saw what Dez did at the end of the second half of last season was incredible. Yeah. I mean, he was the highest scoring wide receiver in the league by a pretty good margin, and that's in a year when Calvin Johnson had over 2,000 yards. But Brandon Marshall, I mean, you said it. I mean, Matt Forte could be the second option in the passing game this year. I mean, he could potentially have the second most receptions. Mm-hmm. It's you're going to get elite production out of both guys. Dez, you may have weeks where he gets, 5 points, and he may have 35 the next week. You don't know. Mm-hmm. But when it's all said and done, they're both going to be in the top 5. I don't think there's any debate about that. Moving on to quarterbacks, a contrast of styles here, but this is kind of the way 2013 is. The quarterbacks have been invaded NWO style by this new crop of athletic, strong-armed,
pistol offense
young quarterbacks, and they are taking no prisoners. And one of the guys leading that charge is Colin Kaepernick, who came on strong at the end of 2012, ultimately taking his team to the Super Bowl. But kind of lost in that shuffle is the great season that Matt Ryan had. I mean, Matt Ryan had an incredible year. The Falcons were the number 1 seed in the NFC. I mean, looking back on it, it kind of gets overshadowed because they ended up losing at home in the NFC Championship game to Kaepernick and the 49ers. But in this battle of quarterbacks from the NFC Championship game last year, Colin Kaepernick and Matt Ryan, who is poised to have the best 2013 from a fantasy perspective?
Terry, you can take this one.
Want me to start?
Absolutely.
Bad lead off, Jared.
Because you know what I'm going to say.
I know what you're going to say.
Not even by my bias towards the 49ers, but
okay.
In general, speaking for the running quarterback, the new age of the quarterback. I will speak for the new age. You can speak for the old age.
All right. Well, he's not. He's only 28. But
just came off
the old style of quarterback.
Fat contract, too, for Matty Ice.
Okay, I'm just going to go Matt Ryan because he's coming off a proven season, almost 5,000 yards, over 30 touchdowns. His yardage might drop a little this year because Steven Jackson, he's going to rush, he's going to take some yardage away, but I still see Matt Ryan being consistent week to week.
Okay.
So
is that it?
Yeah.
That's
what's the, before he goes on his pro Kaepernick campaign here, what is it about Kaepernick? Is it that you see like other guys outperforming him simply, or do you feel like maybe last year was a fluke? What do you think about Kaepernick? Say what's in your heart, Jared.
Okay, fine. Last year,
I know what that grin means.
Okay, last year, one amazing year, one amazing half a season.
Half a season.
I'm not entirely sold. I'd rather be on somebody I can trust. You know what I mean? So
And a
plus,
guy that's
he's
won one playoff game? Okay, go ahead.
Okay.
Well, we're talking fantasy.
I'm
We're
just
talking
saying,
fantasy.
I'm just saying.
Okay, no,
Just saying.
that's all right. No, I like
Just saying.
Kaepernick. I like Kaepernick, but to be my quarterback, you gotta have.
Do you have a bias against the athletic running quarterback?
No.
You just
really.
rather have the more prototypical passer?
I'd rather have a guy that's more established.
But there were a few games last year where Matt Ryan threw up absolute clunkers.
There were a few.
Yeah, absolute
That's a few.
clunkers. Like, not even double-digit fantasy points.
That's okay.
Because he only gives you that one element. Now, you look at a guy like Colin Kaepernick, he gives you the passing game, he gives you the running game.
Okay.
A guy like even Tim Tebow, he was throwing up double-digit fantasy points when he was starting every game for Denver because he gave you that dual element.
Plus, there's risk.
What?
I think you look at the safety issue.
There is risk too. Like running
Exactly.
quarterbacks, they'll get hurt.
I mean,
That's all right.
Matt Ryan will last you the season. Will Kaepernick last you the season?
he will last you the season. The guy's built like a freighter. So,
He's
Okay.
gorgeous.
absolute animal. Yes, granted they lost
They lost Crabtree
for
too.
the year,
That's
but
another factor.
you're still playing on the best team of football with probably one of the best coaches at the helm calling the plays. They're set up for success. He's a guy who can lead your fantasy team. He will give you high double-digit fantasy points, probably around high teens, low 20s every game. He's going to rush for at least 50 yards a game, Jared. He's going to score almost through the air and rushing, gets you 3 touchdowns a game. Doesn't turn the ball over rarely. So,
All right.
I mean, just to piggyback off of that, one thing, and we talk about this, and I think it's a lot of it is because we're just so used to seeing it in our hometown with Michael Vick. It's that it's just because he's a running quarterback doesn't. Yeah, you're prone to be hit more, but I mean, look at guys like Cam Newton hasn't missed a start in 2 seasons.
That's true.
and it's not even like he's talking about running quarterbacks. It's not that these guys, some of them are very careless, and we saw that with RG3. The reason why he got hurt, putting himself at risk, not running out of bounds, not sliding. Kaepernick, Cam Newton, they're 2 guys that know when to run.
Yeah.
They have the presence of mind to know when to slide, to get out of bounds. They're careful with the ball.
I mean, Kaepernick, 6'5", 233. I mean, dude's a house.
It's a linebacker, Jerry. It's basically a linebacker playing quarterback who can run a 4.4.
Yeah.
It's a new era, Jared. Just embrace it.
RG3, 6'2".
I have nothing against him. I just rather go the safer pick.
So I'm saying, if you're in round
You should
6,
be happy. I won't draft him. You could have.
if you're in round 6 or 7 and he's still sitting there, you're not going to take
6
him.
or 7, he won't
Yeah.
last.
You're not going to take him.
Yeah, it's different.
A
6
lot
or-
of mock drafts have Kaepernick in round 6 and 7.
Okay, if he's around 6 or
in
7.
our draft, he's not going to be
No,
around in
if-
6 and 7.
If you know a quarterback, yeah, absolutely.
If he's around in 6 or 7, I don't have a quarterback. Then yes, I will take him.
Oh, okay.
Do you? All right, now let's delve a little deeper here. Do you have Cam Newton higher than Kaepernick?
I think we all do. Yes, I do.
I don't.
Okay. Do you have Andrew Luck higher than Kaepernick?
No. I don't think Luck is going to produce what he did last year.
Really? I think he's going to have an even better year this year.
I don't see him. What did he get? 4,300 yards last year?
Yeah,
I think
most
Arians
all-time
leaving.
for a rookie.
I don't know.
You think why? Because of Bruce Arians leaving?
Yeah, Bruce Arians leaving.
I don't think anyone can doubt the talent in Andrew Luck and the
No,
skill
Luck's-
set. I mean, me personally, I think Luck is one thing he's going to do is cut down on turnovers from last year.
Oh yeah, that's
He had a
for
ton
sure.
of turnovers. He led the league in interceptions that were dropped on top of the interceptions that he had, which I believe led the league as well. So I for one, he's going to cut down the interceptions. Yeah, he may not put up the downfield numbers, and he was involved in a lot of shootouts last year.
Yeah.
Um,
Plus, with the addition of Amon Bradshaw, they're saying is still an every down back, which I mean we still have to wait and see that. That's going to take away from. Then they want a more balanced offense, so they're going to run the ball more.
Yeah. His totals may drop slightly, but
Yeah.
taking out the Bruce Arians factor, but I think his effectiveness overall is going to go up. I think you're going to see a significant rise in that.
Is Andrew Luck a starting quarterback for your fantasy team?
Is
I'm
this
asking,
a
is
real
he?
question?
Yeah, it's a real
Yes, he's a starting quarterback. Yeah, absolutely. He's
In
a top 10 guy.
In most drafts, he's being drafted as like maybe the 11th quarterback. But for me personally, I would be, if I decide to wait,
deep.
I would be happy with Andrew Luck on in the week 1.
Would you take him over Romo?
That's
That's a tough question. I'm a little bit more high, a little higher on Romo than I think most people are.
Yeah, I like
I
Romo a
would
lot.
probably go Romo.
But I mean,
Well, a lot of Romo's production last year was because the Cowboys fell behind. Times where they shouldn't have been behind. And Romo had to just play catch up the whole game.
Deep
yeah,
down,
but,
there's
Romo-
but
Romo's-
Romo's numbers
Romo's
have been
numbers are sick.
consistently good his entire
Yeah.
career.
Just because they don't win games doesn't
Right.
mean that his fantasy
It's
numbers
irrelevant
aren't
to us.
good.
Exactly. I mean, Andrew Luck, the Colts have the Colts play in one of the worst divisions in football. So they play 2 games against the Titans, 2 games against the Jaguars. They play the Raiders, they play the Dolphins, they play the Chargers, they play the Cardinals, they play the Bengals, the Chiefs. I mean, it's not like, yeah, there's some good defenses in there, but it's not murderer's row. I mean, I think Andrew Luck is poised to have a really nice sophomore season. All right, guys, excellent stuff for the best effing debate here. We'll be right back in a few to take a bunch of questions from our Twitter followers. Stay tuned. Welcome back to the preseason edition of the Best Effin' Fantasy Show, the great Best Effin' debate we've been having here live from the basement. I'm your host, Steve Albertini. Follow us on Twitter at Best Effin' Show. Shoot us all your questions and concerns throughout the year. Be happy to help. And of course, check out our revamped website, besteffingfantasyshow.com. A lot of great content on there. And check out the draft kit as well. Drafts are rapidly approaching, so make sure you have all of your information so you can dominate on draft day. I want to pass it along to our producer, Nick Specca, who has the first question.
Twitter board is absolutely just blowing
It's
up right
blowing
now.
up.
Just gonna pick a few good questions that are very important. First question comes from @girlsports365. They want to know, where should Jared Cook be ranked among tight ends?
Jared Cook's one of your guys from way back.
He's an
Yeah,
animal.
I've always been a fan of Jared Cook, and like you've always seen like him show these flashes of like elite. He has elite talent, but like he never really lived up to the hype. And this year, I actually think he could. In St. Louis, spread offense, they're going to be high octane pass offense. I think he's going to have a decent season.
Like, what's a
For where-
decent season? Like,
He might catch between 60 and 70 balls, maybe 800 yards, 8 touchdowns, something like
I
that.
think that would be a
That's a great season.
phenomenal season.
That
for
is a great
tight
season
end
for it, yeah.
That's not named Jimmy Graham. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like that's.
I think tight ends this year is awful. So
I don't know. For where Jared Cook's being drafted, he's being drafted
Good
between
value.
what, like 9 and 12.
yeah,
That's really good value.
What do you think about Jared Cook?
Given his past, I say the verdict's still out on Jared Cook for me. Not in a high-powered offense. I think Tavon Austin and Chris Givens are going to be the two guys that the Rams lean on heavily. Not a lot of running game right now. Still haven't established a clear starter with the three out there in St. Louis. So I guess we'll see. I'm not a huge fan of him right now.
I think he's just he's lumped into this category of young tight ends that could break out.
Kellen Winslow Jr.
Well, like 10 years ago.
I'm saying it's the same reference. He thought he was going to do great. He just didn't try.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
like
Every year it's the same thing. It's
Yeah,
But-
they've been saying for years, like, okay, he's had a great offseason. He's going to do this
Right.
this year.
right.
It's like
And,
him.
but at the same point though, it's a year where the position's kind of thin. Maybe this is the year that one or two or three of these guys step up. The Jared Cooks, the Jordan Camerons, the Brandon Myers, the Martellus Bennett's. Like all these guys are in some new situations where they could step up.
It's like a dead zone of tight ends.
It is.
Yeah.
It's a big time dead zone after you get past the first. I mean, with losing Hernandez, Gronkowski's hurt. Pitt is done for the year. I mean, those are 3 of the top 6.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's ugly.
Yeah.
So somebody needs to step up. Who's going to step up?
All right. Our next question comes from @Chad Sheldon, 36.
Hey, Chad.
He wants to know, Des Bryant, it's our boy. He said, it seems to me he'll be double teamed a lot this year. And I'm quoting exactly off the Twitter board. He said, any other Cowboys receivers tickle your fancy? All right, Chad.
Receivers, I mean, Miles Austin by default is the next best receiver, but for me, it's Des Bryant and then Jason Witten. So,
yeah.
I mean, Miles Austin's the 3rd option. But, I mean, Miles Austin is not the Miles Austin from 2011 or 2010. So
he's always struggled staying healthy. I mean, for where Miles Austin's being drafted, if you get him late and he still manages to be productive, consider yourself lucky.
Yeah.
So after that, other guys are stepping up, like Cole Beasley. He's having a good preseason.
Miles Austin's too busy running around Rebel dressed like a homeless gardener.
Yeah, I saw him a couple weeks ago. We had a powwow.
You guys smoke some hookah together?
Next question comes from one of our top fans, NYC Money. He wants to know, what do you guys think about Romo this year? Is he worth sleeping on?
This is a Dallas show? What's going on here? You're nuts. No, I mean, I wrote about Romo on the site. I'm pretty high on Romo. You know, there's the elite guys. There's these new guys that are going to be drafted really high, and then after that, you have a bunch of productive quarterbacks. I think Romo kind of leads that 3rd tier of quarterbacks. I mean, he's a virtual lock for over 4,000 yards and 30 touchdowns. If he keeps his turnovers to a minimum, then you're talking about a top 10 guy just based on the numbers. I mean, he was the number 9 overall scorer in NFL.com leagues last year. So, I mean, it's not.
Yeah, he's a guy that's going to fall
at.
in drafts because of the bad rap that the team actually gets,
right?
Instead of individual performance through fantasy leagues. So, yeah, he'll be slept on in a lot of drafts, and you'll get a quality quarterback out of him.
There's so much.
If you don't get one of those top tier quarterbacks, don't worry. Wait on him. You might be able to get him as late as the 8th round. Maybe I've seen him go in like the 10th round. Some.
That's
leagues,
I'm glad you brought that up, Quan, because it's like such an important thing to remember. Like, fantasy is numbers.
Yeah.
It's all it is numbers. Mm-hmm. I mean, you can't take your biases. Like, I'm a diehard Eagles fan, but it doesn't mean I'm not going to draft Des Bryant if he falls in my lap. You know what I mean? Like, so many people have this anti-Cowboys bias that they're like, oh, why am I going to draft Tony Romo? He chokes. Well, but if he gives you 300 yards and 3 touchdowns before he throws that last interception on that potentially game-winning drive, who cares?
Mm-hmm.
So, that's my rant on Romo.
Preach. Our last question, he doesn't have Twitter, but he wanted me to ask you guys. He wants to know in your...
Who is it?
Oh, it's at my boy, at Chop Lamb. It's
not... But he doesn't have Twitter? And that's
he doesn't have
Twitter.
Twitter. Well, if he has Twitter handle, he doesn't know this, but I would call him at Chop Lamb. He wants to know if he's stuck with the 8th pick in the draft. It's a PPR league, and he sees Trent Richardson there, but he also sees Calvin Johnson. Would he be more lenient to take Calvin or Trent?
That's a tough one.
I told him be right back.
That's a good question.
In my opinion, I'm taking Calvin, but that's
how you draft.
That's how I draft. I'll take Calvin. Like I said, from 8 on, if Calvin's there, I'm taking him, and then I'm taking the best available running back, depending on the mood I'm in. I mean, if I want to take another star receiver in a PPR league, I'll take another star receiver because I know later in the draft I could get a guy like Darren Sproles. I could get a guy like Shane Vereen. I could get a guy who's going to produce out of the backfield that you won't be able to get in a regular draft.
I mean, it's kind of the age-old question when you're drafting at the end of the snake. It's like, do you take Calvin and a lesser running back, or do you take a better running back and a lesser receiver? I mean, it's so hard. I mean, is it a 10-team league?
Yeah, it's 10 teams.
So you could either have Calvin and Steven Jackson or Chris Johnson, somebody like that, or you can take Trent Richardson and get Brandon Marshall on the comeback. You know what I mean? It depends on what your strategy is.
I mean, the thing is, like, this year with North Turner, Trent Richardson could be a monster. He could actually finish in a PPR league.
He was a monster last year.
He was a monster last year, but they said that he wanted. They said that they want to get him at least 300 carries, and they see him catching the ball 60 times. I mean, that's
60 catches is
that's like
a lot of production in a PPR.
If he holds up a whole season and he gets those type of numbers, he could finish top 3 in a PPR league.
It's the same reports we're getting out of Alfred Morris right now.
Yeah,
they're going to get him more involved in the passing game.
Right, that's what Shanahan said today.
So honestly, like I would, it's tough, but in the PPR league, like given how thin running backs are, I might lean towards getting Trent, and then next round you could still get somebody like Dez or Brandon Marshall even, or there's still going to be a lot of
100%. You're getting at 13 on his next pick. He's getting a stud receiver.
Yeah, the chances of getting a good running back are not as high.
Yeah,
because the next picks can go Trent Richardson and Alfred Morris, and then who's going to come with Steven Jackson.
I do think there's a pretty. I do think there's a drop off between. You have like Richardson, Morris, Rice, are all kind of in that category,
Right,
and then who's next?
Oh, there's a major drop off.
Chris Johnson, Stephen Ridley.
You can't have one of those guys as your number one running back, though.
Well,
you just can't trust him.
Another guy that's fallen a little bit under them is Matt Forte, and we're not about him this.
You could have to get Forte in the second round.
Yeah,
to get value.
Forte, Maurice Jones-Drew.
Forte and Jones.
Names that are.
Yeah.
It all comes down to
you
have to play to your league strengths.
That's right. If all the wide
Build a
receivers are
team
gone,
towards your league strengths, and you will be okay. That's all you have to do.
can't wait till I chop this tomorrow.
You just got chopped, bro. You just got lamb chopped.
My boy. That's all the questions we have for this week. I'm gonna pass it back to Steve.
Did you catch it, Steve?
I caught it. Took it to the house. Thanks,
Lost
Nick. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in to the preseason Best Effin' Debate. We'll be back very soon. Kickoff in a couple weeks. So stay with us. Follow us on Twitter at Best Effin' Show. Like us on Facebook, Best Effin' Fantasy Show. Check out the website, besteffinfantasyshow.com. New content daily. You're going to love it. And, of course, check out the draft kit on the website. Guaranteed to dominate every draft, no matter your league settings. I'm out. See you next week.